Your first question. Introduce yourself and explain why you are a candidate for the Oakland School Board.
Sure. Well, thank you for asking that to kick us off. My name is Nick Resnick. I'm running for the District 4 school board seat in Oakland Unified. First and foremost, I'm a parent. I'm a dad to two incredible children. One is at Sequoia Elementary, and then one is at a neighboring preschool within District 4. And I am here for the next 15 years, and I am committed to this district, and I am committed to ensuring that all families see themselves in the trajectory of our system from K through 12th grade. And I want to make sure that all of our schools, every single school in every single neighborhood, is one that families are choosing to go to. More than a parent, I moved here 15 years ago to teach in Oakland. My first job was at community day school, and I spent a number of years at Edna Brewer Middle School. I recognize that when we get strong curriculum, when we're able to support teachers and have strong leadership, that different things are possible for children. And I have seen that firsthand as a teacher. I have seen that as somebody who facilitated communities of practice across California Title I school districts. And now I see that as a parent volunteering at my local elementary school and in schools like Skyline, Bret Harte, and others across the district. So I come to this position with a teacher and a parent identity, and in knowing that better is possible when we can focus on a few prioritized goals and really support the communities we're serving with that personalized really touch related to programming, funding, and supports.
Thank
Your
you.
ne- Your next question. What current programs/proposals do you feel are successful? What would you keep and build on, and what would you cut?
Yeah, that was probably, and I know time's going, the one I was thinking about the most when I had 5 minutes with the questions. So first and foremost, I am thrilled that we adopted an early literacy curriculum that is really steeped in the research of how our students can learn reading. What we've known is that balanced literacy in that K through 3 space has really not produced literate students and students that are actually meeting those reading proficiency goals by 3rd to 5th grade. So I would want to commit to really ensuring that that continues and that we are investing in capacity building and support for teachers. So often I've noticed we adopt this multi-million-dollar curriculum, and this has just been in my work across districts and in my work now. And then we fall short of investing and supporting the adults in the system that actually need to move that forward for kids. So I would want to keep that going, and I would want to make sure that we are working side by side with our teachers and listening to them about what they have that's working really well in relationship to that and what they need. In terms of a second thing, as a teacher, I was part of a leadership team bringing restorative justice practices as well as a pilot site for the African American Male Achievement Office. This was back in 2010. And what I had seen those two things do within our school, and then I was an instructional coach across middle schools, was transformational for our Black communities. So that is an area that I want to better understand how we're scaling that across the district and how we're intensively supporting the communities that have showcased really the best outcomes when we intensively really focus and target some manhood development work, as well as bringing families into the schools that we all haven't always necessarily found ways to invite in.
Thank you. Here's your next question. Will you commit to rejecting donations and support from privatization linked organizations such as Go Public Schools and the California Charter School Association?
I believe that's a yes. I don't have any formal relationship with any of those entities. And I don't anticipate, I have no interest in being part of any formal endorsement process related to those entities. It's not my understanding that anything currently exists, but I have definitely made known to folks that I have no interest in being part of those processes.
Okay, your next question. What is the role of the school board? What is the role of an individual school board director? And what should the relationship be between the board and the superintendent?
Yeah, so I think the number one role of a school board member is to ensure that we are providing an education for every one of our children, and that we are getting to a place where that is guaranteed. So whether you are a student with special needs, whether you are a student who has had a history of trauma, whether you are a homeless or foster youth, whether you are gifted or talented, it is our role as a school board to ensure that we are allocating resources, right, advancing a budget, and ensuring that the superintendent has strategic priorities that are focused on that guaranteed education. And what that looks like across our district is going to be extremely different based on the students, the population, the school, right? The different levels of community and nonprofit supports that are there. So just to recite, the number one thing as a school board member for me, and that I will always focus on, is how are our children doing? Are we supporting them with reading, math, extracurriculars, programming that shows them and helps them engage in school and sees themselves as an academic learner and sees themselves as somebody who will have access to a life of choice and opportunity? I feel like as the board of directors, as educators in the system, that we just really need to do everything in our power, especially in our city, to make that certain. In terms of the superintendent, for me, it comes back to really thinking about the strategic plan and ensuring with the community support that was pushed forward, that we are ensuring that the superintendent is holding that as sacred and that everything that she and her team are doing are aligned to that. So for now, it'd be like retaining and supporting teachers, then also thinking about our early literacy proficiency levels.
Thank you. Here's your next question. Do you commit to voting against any school closures? Other than school closures, what are 3 specific ways you can respond to possible funding shortfalls in the budget?
I'll go with the second part first and the first part second. Um, because, as a school board member, I would do everything possible um, in the future not to have to cut schools. So first of all, I think we definitely need to look at our consultant spend. So figure out who else are we bringing into our system and why, and what are the results of those actions, and is there internal capacity that we already have or that we can establish pipelines for teachers or educators in our system to actually do some of the work that's happening outside. Additionally, I think central office. I see a number of different analyses that showcase that our central office is significantly heavier than most across the state of California in relationship to the number of students we have. And I would also look at facilities that right now don't have students in them. How are we using those? How can we better use those to support our community, to support our families, to support our students? So I'd say those are a few areas that I want to look at critically and try to understand like option 1, 2, and 3, and then hopefully bring that to the community through monthly town halls and ways in which that we're looking at that information together and thinking about a plan over time. The school closure question, I'm just trying to see exactly what it was. Do you commit to voting against any? So right now, in my understanding of what's going on, I wouldn't be able to commit to that. I am worried about all of our schools, and I worry that without thinking critically and using the equity framework as part of the Black reparations resolution, I absolutely believe we need to use that. And we need to think both about hills and flatland schools. But over time, I think it's in the best interest of our families to think through a 5-year plan on how we can consolidate, thinking critically about race, and what we're and who we are asking to move, and what are we and which sites we're asking to close.
Thank you. What do you see as the effects of charter schools on OUSD students? And what do you believe should be the relationship between Oakland Unified School District and the charter sector?
Between OUSD and the charter sector. So one thing I hope that I can bring is really working across different bodies of people throughout our city. And for this does mean to me the union, the charter networks, the district, nonprofits who are working in our schools, all of these different pieces. I believe the relationship between OUSD and the charter sector just needs to be positive and really a learning orientation, because those are all of our children. And there's so many of our children in those schools. I'd also add private schools in there, because I believe 15 to 20% of our kids go there. So if there are good things happening there, if there are good things happening at the district, I think we really need to leverage and learn from each other. I also believe that having a positive relationship over time is what may move our students back into our district schools from the charter system as we develop those relationships, partnerships, and they start. In my conversations, my child doesn't go to a charter school. I've always worked in district schools, but with that, I've just spoken to hundreds of families that say, this the school felt too big for me that my child was pushed into for middle school, so I looked at alternative options. So with that said, I think about how can we get that child and family back into our system and have them recognize that there is space for them there. So I think a positive relationship, a learning orientation, and then working together to figure out how we can get students back into our system would be a priority. The impact. Effects of charter schools on OUSD students. So the impact. So prior to we definitely have a reduced amount of money because families and students have picked charters. I think that has caused an issue, and that's definitely something for us to talk about and figure out how to overcome.
Thank you.
Sure.
Here's your next question. Could you describe some examples and sources of environmental racism in your district? And how would you say they've affected OUSD students, parents, and educators? What commitments can you make towards combating the disproportionate impacts of pollutant exposures on OUSD students, parents, and educators?
Yeah. So when I think about this question, no problem. I think about what feels to me as the unfairness, right? My family, I live around Diamond Park. We can walk my child to his school. I recognize that that's not what exists for so many of the students that I worked with and our families in East and West Oakland. I recognize that the options for them that they're choosing are far away from their neighborhood school or where they live, and that causes a significant amount more pollutants because either they're being driven, they're jumping on a bus, they're figuring out a means to get there, and that should not be disproportionate. That outcome of that pollution should not disproportionately impact our most marginalized communities. So, I mean, I feel like I'm learning into this research and the impact in terms of the decisions we're making here in OUSD. And I want to figure out how we can combat that. So sorry, I'm just looking at the question, what commitments can we make towards combating? I think it's really thinking about how we are providing schools where families feel comfortable sending their children in their neighborhoods. So not just certain neighborhoods and certain areas in Oakland have a reduction of pollution because they have a school where families feel comfortable sending their kids. So the number one thing I would want to do is focus, right? Focus on a few areas, one of them being early literacy, making sure all of our students are able to read by that third grade marker. So therefore we can raise the perception or even the reputation is what I find. I find often it's just this reputation thing and it's not even true why families are choosing different places. So it's like, how can we focus on the academics, focus on a guaranteed like community set of supports for every school so families may not feel the desire to go outside of that.
Thank you. Next question is, how would you partner with the Oakland community, students, families, educators, classified unions, community organizations, etc., around issues facing our schools, in particular when making controversial or difficult decisions?
Okay, sorry, this is helpful for me to reread it myself too. I think this is one of the main reasons that I'm choosing to run. I believe that we as board members need to be in deep conversation ongoingly with the community, with our teachers, with our parents, right? With everybody who's impacted by the decisions we're making. And I think the process that went down a few months ago, it really left out that critical voice. It really left out that process. And so I am committed to, I mean, the word that comes to my mind is like town halls or community meetings, multiple times a month, to where I'm not delivering a 5-paragraph essay or a 200-page document that's saying, hey, it's been in this, check it out. Like, that is not fair. That is not appropriate. That is not an appropriate way to give information to people and believe that it's going to make sense. Maybe that all that doesn't even make sense. So it's our job to really grapple with it together and try to figure out a few different options that people feel comfortable with, connected to data and connected to research-based best practices that we can then invest in. So when we think about the school closure thing, I believe that if we were coming together as a community monthly, even on Zoom through the pandemic, but the board members were being open, they were being honest, they were engaging in those conversations. So people can ask questions, so everyone could be on the same page, and it didn't feel like the rug was just taken out from under them, right? That there was this ongoing dialogue and ongoing collaboration. Then we could have thought about better ways to invest in a transitional plan, transitional supports, the use of frameworks like the things that are called on in the Black Reparations Resolution, right? So what I believe deeply is that every person should have a voice at the table, and I want to bring that as myself, as a parent, as a former teacher, and as somebody who's deeply committed to this work for the next 10 to 15 years, not a few, not 4.
Thank you. So for the final part, this is your opportunity to add any closing remarks to any of your constituents. So anything that you like to say, your closing remarks.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I'm just grateful to be here in space with you all. I think something I just want to hit is that a priority of mine is to really establish an inclusive and positive adult culture. I'm a trans man. I am part of a queer family. And I believe, right, that making sure all voices are heard and that students and families see that no matter which position they're in, which side of the table they stand on, that they have a voice. And so representation for me matters, and making sure that we are creating an environment where we can have hard and difficult conversations, but do so with respect and humility. Like so many people in Oakland, we understand that the decisions we're making are life and death for our children. We see that every day. And we know that learning how to read or being able to access math, really up to algebra, right, is something that our children need in order to have that life of opportunity. And so one of my main goals is to come in, meet with everybody, right, be in relationship with everybody, and showcase to our students and to our families that we can do this. We can do hard things. We can have different ways on the how, but still have the same goal together and show up every other week and be there for children and be there for families and be there in relationship with each other in a respectful and inclusive way. And so I just want to hit that because that's really for me what it's about and what it will take for us to make these hard decisions.